Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English to Fluency, where we help you learn real, useful English in a simple and fun way. I'm Susan, and today we have a very important topic for many learners around the world. We're going to talk about how to speak English more fluently and what fluency truly means.
Hi, Susan, and hello to our wonderful listeners. I'm really excited for this episode because fluency is something so many students want. In fact, I think almost every English learner I've ever met has said, I want to speak more fluently. But the funny thing is, they're not always sure what fluency actually means.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes students feel frustrated because they study grammar books, they learn new vocabulary, they do exercises, they watch videos, and they read messages online. But then, when they have to speak, suddenly everything feels difficult. Their brain freezes, or they can't find the words, or they speak very slowly with long pauses.
Right, and maybe some of you listening are thinking, yes, that's me. I know many of my students have told me that they study for years, but when they try to talk to someone in English, they feel like beginners.
I think that's a very common situation. So today, we want to break down what fluency really is and discuss what you can do to improve it step by step. And we'll also share some stories about our own language learning experiences. Because this is not just about English. This is about how humans learn to speak any language fluently.
That's true, and I think when listeners hear that even ESL teachers struggle when learning other languages, it can be comforting, because sometimes students believe the problem is them. They think, maybe I'm not good at languages, or maybe my brain doesn't work for English. But it's not true. Everyone struggles, even teachers.
Exactly. Fluency is not magic. It's not a natural talent. It is a skill that grows with practice, especially speaking practice. So let's begin with a simple but very important question. What is fluency?
I think this is where students get confused. If I ask 10 students, what does fluency mean, I'll probably get 10 different answers. Some people think fluency means being perfect. Others think it means speaking fast, and others think it means having a large vocabulary.
Good point. And sometimes students believe fluency is just about having a high level of English in general. For example, if someone says she is fluent in English, it might mean she speaks very well. But in language teaching, fluency has a more specific meaning.
Okay, so tell us, what does fluency mean for teachers?
Fluency means being able to speak smoothly without stopping too much and without long pauses where the speaker has to search for words. It means your speech flows, and that word is very useful. Flow. Fluency is about flow.
I like that word, flow, because when something flows, it moves naturally, like a river.
Exactly. It doesn't mean perfect grammar. It doesn't mean a perfect accent. And it doesn't mean speaking very fast. It means speaking comfortably, at a natural pace, without constantly stopping.
So it's more about smoothness than speed.
Yes, and it helps to understand that fluency has two important sides, physical and mental.
Okay, let's break those down. What do you mean by physical fluency?
Physical fluency is about your mouth. Your mouth needs to produce English sounds, connect words, and move in a way that feels automatic. If your mouth isn't used to English, then producing sounds will feel slow and uncomfortable. It's a bit like learning to play the piano. Your fingers must learn the movement.
That's very true. I remember when I studied Spanish, I knew the words in my head, I knew the grammar, but when I tried to speak, my mouth felt slow. It was like I needed to warm up before I could talk.
Exactly. And that slow feeling is physical. Your brain might know the word, but your mouth says, "Give me a moment, I'm still learning how to do this."
Okay, so that's physical fluency. What about mental fluency?
Mental fluency is about your brain. Your brain needs to find words and build sentences quickly. It needs to choose vocabulary and grammar without hesitation. If your brain is always translating from your language into English, it becomes slow, and slow speech breaks fluency.
So, mental fluency is about access, being able to reach the language quickly without translation.
Correct. When both physical and mental fluency improve, your speech becomes smoother and more natural.
Let me ask a question that I think our listeners might be thinking right now. If fluency has a physical and a mental side, how can someone train both? Do you need different exercises?
Yes, but we'll talk about those later in the podcast. First, we need to talk about the most important rule for fluency: speaking.
I love this section because I think many students don't realize that speaking is not the same as studying.
Yes, and we need to say this clearly. To improve fluency, you must speak. It doesn't matter how many books you read, how many vocabulary lists you memorize, or how many grammar videos you watch. Fluency comes from speaking.
Let's give an example. Imagine someone wants to learn how to swim. They watch videos about swimming, they read articles about swimming techniques, they study the theory of swimming, but they never get in the water.
Exactly. After 1 year, will that person be able to swim?
No way!
And it's the same with speaking English. Speaking is a physical, practical skill. You must practice it in real time with real people.
I think this surprises some learners because reading, writing, and even listening can be improved alone. You can read a book by yourself, you can watch a movie alone, you can practice listening alone, but speaking is different.
Yes, speaking requires another human. You need an audience. You need someone to react. You need someone to interrupt, ask questions, or misunderstand you. That pressure is part of fluency training.
That's right.
Now, let's talk about frequency.
Yes. So, Susan, how much speaking is necessary to improve fluency?
More than most people do. A minimum would be 2 to 3 hours a week of real conversation, and more is better.
2 to 3 hours doesn't sound like much, but for many learners, it's a lot.
Correct. Many students study English for years and only speak a few minutes per week, or even 0.
Let me ask something for clarification. When you say real conversation, do you mean formal lessons?
Not necessarily. A lesson with a teacher is great, but talking to expats, joining English-speaking events, having language exchange partners online, or even participating in hobby groups where English is used, all of these count.
So speaking doesn't have to be academic, it just has to be real communication.
Exactly.
Let's pause here because I think some listeners might be thinking something like, but I don't have anyone to speak to, or but I'm shy, or but it's too difficult, or but I'm scared of making mistakes.
Yes, and that takes us to something very important: pressure. Speaking a foreign language always involves pressure. It always feels harder than speaking your native language. And that feeling never completely disappears, not even for teachers or advanced learners.
I think that's so important for learners to hear because a lot of students believe that one day, suddenly, speaking English will feel comfortable and easy. But that's not how it works.
No, unless you live in an English-speaking country and are fully surrounded by the language every day, speaking will always feel slightly uncomfortable.
Let me share a personal story here. When I was living in Italy, I studied Italian for 2 years. I could speak quite well, I could have long conversations, but I hated making phone calls in Italian. I don't know why. Phone calls made me nervous. I always felt like I wouldn't understand the person, or they would speak too fast.
That's a perfect example because many learners hate phone calls in another language. When you're on the phone, you can't see the person. You don't have facial expressions or gestures to help. You don't have context. So the experience feels harder.
Exactly. And here's the funny part. After Italy, I moved back to my country and later I studied French. And guess what? I hated making phone calls in French too. Same issue.
Same problem with different languages.
Yes, and I never learned a secret trick to feel comfortable on the phone. I just accepted that it feels uncomfortable, and I did it anyway when I had to.
I love that point because many learners think, I will speak when I feel confident. But the truth is, confidence comes after speaking, not before. If you wait to feel comfortable, you will wait forever.
I want to repeat that for our listeners. Confidence comes after speaking, not before.
Yes, that sentence is essential.
So, what can learners do? How do they deal with pressure?
The first step is acceptance. Accept that speaking will feel uncomfortable. Accept that you will make mistakes. Accept that sometimes people won't understand you. These things are normal.
And they happen to everyone.
Yes, even teachers, even advanced learners, even native speakers when they learn other languages. The pressure is not a sign that something is wrong. It's actually a sign that something is working, because pressure means you are using the language in real situations, not just studying it.
That's a great point. I think learners misunderstand pressure. They think pressure is bad, but really, pressure builds fluency. When you are under real-time communication pressure, when someone is waiting for your answer, you have to think faster. You have to choose words without time to translate. That's fluency training.
Exactly. And here's the interesting part. Progress in fluency is made in those uncomfortable moments, not in the comfortable ones. When you speak without pressure, for example, talking to yourself in your head, it's useful, but it doesn't replace real conversation.
Let's make a comparison. Imagine someone wants to learn to play guitar. They watch videos about guitar, they read posts about guitar, and they even touch the guitar sometimes, but they never play in front of people because it feels scary. Will they ever become confident performers?
Of course not. Performing in front of people is what makes you good at performing in front of people. And speaking English in real conversations is what makes you good at speaking English in real conversations.
And I also want to say something because I think some learners blame themselves. They think, if I feel scared, maybe I'm not talented, or maybe I'm too shy, or maybe my English will never improve. But actually, shy people can become fluent speakers. Nervous people can become fluent speakers. The fear doesn't decide the result.
Yes, that's important. The fear doesn't stop communication. Avoiding communication stops communication. And this connects to fluency in a very deep way. Many learners wait for a magic moment when speaking suddenly becomes easy. But for most people, that moment doesn't exist. Fluency grows slowly as you speak more, and the discomfort becomes smaller with time, not before time.
I like that. The discomfort becomes smaller with time. And speaking of discomfort, let's get into some practical techniques, because while speaking practice is the most important part, there are also exercises you can do to train your fluency faster.
Let's begin with the physical side of fluency. If you remember from earlier, physical fluency is about the mouth. Your mouth must learn how to produce English sounds smoothly and quickly.
I think many learners underestimate this. They believe everything happens in the brain, but speaking is a physical action. The tongue moves, the jaw moves, the lips move, air moves, and these movements are different in every language.
Exactly. For example, think about the sound th in English. Many languages do not have this sound. So when learners try to say words like think, three, or south, the mouth doesn't know what to do at first.
Right, and I've seen students replace th with s or t or z. So three becomes tree and think becomes sink.
And that's a perfect example of physical fluency. The mouth hasn't learned the movement yet. With repetition, the movement becomes automatic and fluency increases.
So what exercises can learners do for physical fluency?
One very effective exercise is speed reading. It's extremely simple and it works very well.
Explain how it works.
Sure. First, choose a short text in English, something not too difficult. For beginners, it could be a graded reader, a blog post, or even a dialogue from a textbook. Then you read it aloud and time yourself.
Then what?
You read it again and you try to beat your previous time. The goal isn't to understand every detail. The goal is to train your mouth to move faster and connect sounds more smoothly.
So the challenge is speak faster than before, but stay clear.
Exactly. It shouldn't be too fast or messy. The speed should push you, but not break the pronunciation completely. It's a balance. And what's great about this exercise is that 5 minutes a day can make a real difference.
I want to add something from my own experience. I did this exercise with Chinese when I was learning, and I could feel improvement in 1 week, not in my brain, but in my mouth. My mouth got used to Chinese rhythm and speed.
That's exactly the point. Fluency is not only mental. Rhythm matters. English has a different rhythm compared to many languages. Speed reading forces the rhythm into your mouth.
I want to ask a question that I think learners might ask. What if I don't have a text, or what if I don't know what text to choose?
Good question. There are many options. You can choose dialogues from ESL textbooks, short articles online, paragraphs from a storybook, graded readers, or even transcripts from English videos. The key is don't choose something too difficult. If there are too many new words, the brain gets stressed and fluency training stops.
True, because the goal is smoothness, not vocabulary learning.
Exactly. Let's involve our listeners for a moment. If you have a pen, or if you're listening at home or in a quiet place, choose a short text later today. Maybe 10 sentences. Time yourself reading it aloud. Then do it again and try to read it a little faster. Do this 5 times. It's simple, but very powerful.
Right. So speed reading is one exercise, but I know you like another technique, songs.
Yes, singing in English is one of my favorite techniques for fluency, and learners enjoy it more than speed reading.
Explain why it works.
When you sing, you must follow the speed and rhythm of the song. You cannot stop, you cannot hesitate, you must continue even if you don't feel ready. This forces physical fluency.
And music makes memory easier.
Exactly. And many English sentences become automatic when learned through songs. For example, expressions like I don't wanna, or what do you mean, or let me go are easier to remember when you hear them in songs.
Let me ask another question for clarification. Should learners start with fast songs or slow songs?
Start slow. Choose a slow song first, then move to medium speed songs, then try faster ones. If you try a fast rap song at the beginning, it will feel impossible and stressful.
Do you have a story about singing in another language?
Yes, when I was studying Spanish, songs helped me more than my textbook. I learned pronunciation, rhythm, and many everyday phrases from music.
So songs are fun and they work.
Exactly. And again, the exercise doesn't need to be academic. Just enjoy the music. Learning should have some joy, especially fluency training.
That's right.
So, we've talked about physical fluency.
Yes, now let's talk about mental fluency. This is the side that stops many learners.
True. Mental fluency is the part that says, I know this word, but I can't find it right now. Or I know how to say this in my language, but I don't know how to say it in English.
That's the translation trap.
Exactly. Many learners build sentences in their own language first, and then translate into English. But translation is slow, and fluency requires speed.
So what's the solution?
The solution is to learn language chunks, not individual words.
Chunks are phrases that come together as a group. For example, I'm going to. Can I have? I'm thinking about. Do you want to? I don't know if. Chunks build sentences quickly. They give structure automatically.
I love that, because when you have chunks, you don't have to build everything from zero. You just fill in the missing part.
Yes, for example, if someone asks you, what are you doing tomorrow? And you remember the chunk, I'm going to, then the only thing you need is the ending. I'm going to visit my friend. I'm going to study English. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to sleep all day.
That's fast. No translation required.
Exactly. Compare that to thinking tomorrow, friend, visit, future tense, grammar, structure. It becomes slow and stressful.
I think many listeners will recognize that pattern. Many learners freeze because they don't have chunks ready.
And the good news is, collecting chunks is easy. You can write them in a notebook, you can highlight them while reading, you can learn them from songs or movies, and you can hear them in conversations.
Right. Now let's create another small listening exercise. You can call it the mini chunk exercise.
Nice. So listeners, take the chunk "I'm thinking about" and add 3 endings in your head. For example, I'm thinking about changing my job. I'm thinking about going to the gym. I'm thinking about learning Spanish.
Now choose another chunk. I might, and add endings. I might cook dinner tonight. I might buy a new phone. I might stay home.
Chunks make fluency possible because they reduce mental work.
Absolutely. Now let's address something important. Many learners memorize long vocabulary lists, but vocabulary lists rarely make someone fluent. Correct. Vocabulary lists teach knowledge, not fluency. Fluency needs ready-made sentence patterns.
Let me ask a question as if I were a student. But if I learn many words, don't I need words to speak?
Good question. Words are necessary, but they are not enough. Think of them as ingredients. Ingredients alone do not create a meal. You need recipes. Chunks are recipes.
I love that metaphor.
Also, learning words with translations builds the habit of thinking in your language first, and thinking in your language first slows down fluency.
I've seen students in class do this. They hear a question, they translate it into their language, they think of an answer in their language, then translate the answer back into English. By that time, the conversation is already moved on.
Yes, and that delay kills fluency. When you collect chunks, you skip the translation stage entirely.
That's right. Now let's review what we've learned. Fluency has 2 sides, physical and mental.
To improve physical fluency, use speed reading and songs. These exercises train the mouth and rhythm.
To improve mental fluency, learn phrases and chunks instead of isolated words.
And the biggest rule, speak. Fluency is communication, not theory.
And speak even when you feel nervous, because confidence comes after speaking, not before.
Exactly. And remember, discomfort is normal. Mistakes are normal. Slow progress is normal. These things happen to everyone who learns a language.
Before we close, let's give our listeners a small weekly fluency challenge, something practical.
All right, here's your challenge for this week. Choose one text and do 5 minutes of speed reading every day. Sing one English song, slow or medium speed. Collect 10 useful chunks and write 3 sentences for each. And speak for at least 20 minutes total, with someone or online.
That challenge is perfect. It trains physical fluency, mental fluency, and speaking fluency all together.
And if you do that for 4 weeks, I promise you, something will change. Not in theory, but in reality.
Thank you for listening, everyone. And remember, fluency is not about perfection. Fluency is about flow, connection, and communication.
Have a wonderful day and keep practicing. See you in the next episode.
Goodbye, and keep speaking English.